More than happy to pass it off to you.
Great. Thank you, Alex. Congratulations to you all on your new positions and welcome. So thank you for being here. So tonight is just an initial conversation around the considerations that influence the development of the fiscal year 26 budget for the school system. And so we are very early in the budget process. So my purpose tonight is just to give you an overview of some of the factors that will influence our development of the budget, to answer any questions that you all might have around any of those factors or how we go through the process, and then go through and provide any details that we might have. If we don't have an answer to your question this evening, we will certainly get it to you. And so I want to thank Jim and his staff for their close work with us. You know, we have an ongoing excellent relationship with the administrative staff of the town. We work together very closely. I believe we talk every day. And so it's really a pleasure to work in partnership with the town. We all recognize that, you know, we're all here to serve the citizens and the children of Narragansett, and we work closely together to try to make that happen. So I'm going to launch in. If there's not any preliminary questions that anyone has, I'm going to launch right in and give you all an overview of the factors influencing the budget. And I included a little bit of data for you, and then we can go into the questions that you have. So first of all, the considerations for next year's budget. The major thing influencing our budget development is enrollment. And so as you all know, the price of housing in our area has been skyrocketing. Because of that, it has been more difficult for families with young children to buy houses in Narragansett, and as such, our younger grades are seeing a decline in enrollment. So since 2019, we've gone down in enrollment over 10%. Because of that, we are going to see some staffing reductions as we go forward. We have been making staffing reductions all along the way, but unfortunately, we're really starting to come to the point where we're going to see some more significant cuts. So we'll do some shuffling around, but we will see some elimination of positions this year, unfortunately. What has been happening over the last couple of years is that our state aid has been held up by the legislature at 2020 levels. And so we are going to see a cut in state aid, we foresee, because the state of Rhode Island is seeing a deficit in their revenues, and that's going to be passed on to the towns, unfortunately. And so we anticipate, you know, somewhere around a $200,000 cut in our state aid this year due to enrollment declines. That's somewhat offset. We've had an increase in the number of students who are in poverty. So we are over 20% of students in poverty now. And so we do get some increased aid for students in poverty, but that's not going to totally make up for the reduction in the total number of students. Another major factor that we have this year are our contract negotiations. So we go on 3-year cycles in our contracts. So both of our contracts, we have 2 major unions that we work with. One is our support staff union, which is our teacher assistants, secretaries, bus drivers, custodians, maintenance workers, and then our teachers, who are obviously our teachers. And so both of those contracts are up for negotiation this year. So I can't yet predict where those contracts will land, but that will be a major factor in our budget development as we go forward. Well over 80% of our total cost of doing business for the school system is people. Right? And that makes sense. It's a person-intensive organization. The whole purpose of having a school system is to have teachers working with kids, and that's the majority of our costs as we go forward. So these contract negotiations have a major impact on our budget. We also have program development, and so we continue to invest in our programs. Some good news that we just received is approval for an additional career and technical education program. And so we were just approved to put in sports medicine and athletic training as a CTE program. And that joins our other programs, which are agri-science, digital media, computer science, plumbing, and education. So there's lots of choices for students. We also continue to develop our advanced placement program. So we are one of the most highly rated schools in the state for our AP program. We offer somewhere close to 20 AP courses, and we actually there's 3 medals that are given out to recognize AP programs. We received 2 golds and a silver in those programs, amongst the best in the state for last year, and that continues to grow. So we're really proud of the work that happens there. The other piece that is a factor in our budget development is tuition. So while we do have lots of tuitions coming in for our CTE program, we also have tuitions going out. So we do have some students. Rhode Island is a state where students have lots of choice where they want to go to school, especially at the high school level. So we do have students that go out and may go to another high school for a program we don't offer. And it's just not feasible for us to offer every program that every student might ever want. So for example, we have students that might go to Cheraho for their culinary program, right? So we don't offer a culinary program. It's reasonable for students to go to Cheraho for that. And so we have a number of students that do that. We take in students versus going out at about a 3 or 4 to 1 ratio. Right? So we have lots more students coming in, but that is still a factor in our budget. Part 2 is tuitions to charter schools. So we do have 2 charter schools in the area. We do have a number of students who do go to charter schools. We're obligated to send them there. It's often not students that began their learning career in Narragansett. It's often families that may move to Narragansett and they have their child enrolled in the charter school. Once they take up residence in Narragansett, we are obligated to pick up that tuition. And so that is something that ongoing we have to absorb those costs. Finally, we often have students who may have a specific disability or a learning need that can't be served within the public schools, and so we do have to outplace those students. That's often at the cost of about $100,000 per student, and so that's another obligation that we have financially that we have to take care of. And then finally, for capital improvements, we have done, I think, the town council and the school committee over time an excellent job in taking care of our facilities. So by resolution, we put about 3% of our budget into capital improvements and maintenance. We save about 2% in case there's an emergency, so some sort of catastrophic issue where we would have to call on financial reserves. But over time, we have not had to go to bond. We've not had to do those things in recent memory in order to maintain our schools. And so our schools are in excellent shape. And we are going through the process of a 5-year reevaluation of what our long-term needs will be. And that process will begin late this spring and go into the fall as we work with the state to do our next round of application for housing aid. So just overall, a couple of the data points that I kind of put out for you just as a reminder is that one of the things that has been managed really well is the cost of the schools to the community. So Narragansett has one of the lowest costs per capita in the community in terms of what the schools cost people. One of the things that people often cite is the price per pupil. And while I'm not discounting the importance of that data metric, one of the things to understand about that in Narragansett is that there are certain fixed costs that all schools have to have. So whether you have 500 kids or 100 kids, you still need to have a school nurse. The price per pupil of that nurse with 500 kids is much lower than the price per pupil of that nurse with 100 kids. Now, if you take that and kind of think of all the different requirements that we have, nurse, principal, maintenance, transportation, kind of all those different things, the cost rises while the number of students that are being served on it, either remain the same or go down a little bit. You can't cut the service, right? So I can't say, oh, there's too few kids, we're not gonna have a nurse anymore, right? So that cost is just embedded in what we're going to do. What often happens to us, and we do as many adjustments as we can, is that there is a number of kids in a class where you lose, let's say, 3 or 4 kids. It's not quite enough to cut a position, but it is enough to make sure that the cost of those positions are that much higher, right? And so, so that's why I would encourage you to look beyond just price per pupil, because for small districts in particular, that can be misleading. If you look at the chart of all of the districts in Rhode Island, the ones with the highest cost per pupil are the smallest districts, right? For a lot of the reasons that I just mentioned. I think a really interesting metric is what percentage of the overall town budget is devoted towards education. And if you turn your page there, you can really see, and the most recent data I found was fiscal year 22. I'll update this as the budget process goes forward. But Narragansett is at a place where 44% of the town budget is devoted to education, whereas our neighbors are in the 50s, 60s, and even 70% of their town budgets are devoted to education. So if you think about the excellence of the school system, of what we're doing, right, of the awards that we're getting, of the number of kids that we have coming in, versus the expenditure by the town, I do think that it is getting really good value, despite some people sometimes citing a high per pupil. But I would also encourage you to really think about what makes up that metric going forward. And finally, one of the things that we often hear is around tax burden related to education. And again, I just kind of put in for you the data to show that Narragansett is amongst the lowest tax burdens in the state, while also giving amongst the lowest percentages of the town budget to education. And so we are well aware of kind of not being a burden on the community, but we also recognize that our parents and families are parts of this community and deserve a really great school system. We do our best to do that in a really financially responsible way. And I'm really grateful to the town councils of the past and hopefully of the present of your support of the schools. And we work really closely, as I said, with Jim and with Christine to make sure we're doing it in a thoughtful manner. So happy to take any questions that you all might have or provide any details, further details that I could.
Well, thank you very much. Just as thorough as I remember the presentation, Pete. All of the supporting documents that have been shared, I encourage all members of the town council to review in their time. And I know that both Dr. Cummings and Jim are both very approachable with any questions that you have. Please feel free to reach out to either one of them. And we can start with Donna with preliminary questions.
I'm just curious, so the students that are coming into the school are mostly at the high school level?
Tuition students?
Tuition students?
Yes.
And I was just wondering if there's any possibility of looking into programs, and I haven't done any research, but starting something at a lower level, like K through 12, like K through 5, some type of a STEM program or a gifted program that we can be like the premier town that offers that to the elementary, and this way bring them in and move them through. I was just curious if that is something that could be, be done.
Oh, I wish, right? And so it is currently not allowed, right, by state statute. And so the only place where we are allowed to bring in kids from out of district is at the high school level. And so I get inquiries literally every week about people being able to come, K-8 as you describe. And unfortunately, K-8, you do need to be a resident or pay tuition out of pocket. And so, in some special circumstances, for example, if someone's going to be moving to Narragansett, like those types of things, we are able to take students in for tuition. As imagine almost private school, we're able to take kids in that way. But unfortunately, that's a very limited window of what we could do. I would love for them to change that law.
Yeah. So if a student needs special needs student, we're not offering the program, they can go to another school. So, but we're not allowed to bring someone in for like a gifted and talented program?
Unfortunately, no.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that.
So,
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes.
What's the purpose of that?
Oh, why don't
At
they
the
let
state,
us?
at the state level, what's the purpose?
So I think some of it, and this is conjecture more than anything else, some of it is helping towns to retain their student population. So we already see a flow of students where it is allowed at the high school level to the point where for some towns, it becomes a financial burden for them, a severe financial burden for the number of students that leave. And so I think they're in many ways trying to uphold local school districts, right, without having that flow. Unfortunately, where it is allowed, right, K through 8 is through charters. And so if you follow the news at all, you know, someplace, for example, more urban centers are really losing hundreds of millions of dollars to charter schools where students are leaving their local schools, going to a charter, which is the equivalent of a public school, and they are allowed to accept K through 8 as well as high school. And so because of that, it really puts the local districts into financial distress. So the legislature has put a cap in. To be honest with you, the CTE, I think took lots of people by surprise because it was able to be mandated by the commissioner without a lot of input at the from the legislative branch. And you can see that people really wanted that mobility. I would argue that we've done a really nice job here in Narragansett because people want to come to us rather than go away from us to other programs, with some exceptions for students who are looking for something particularly specialized. But we get many more inquiries of people coming to us than we do from leaving. And I am certain that that would also happen K through 8 were it to be allowed.
Yeah, hi, doctor, thanks for coming. Becky says hi.
We miss her.
She really enjoyed her time with you guys at, at the school committee. Two things. I call it the O'Brien wing, the elementary school. So is that not being used? Is that?
So it currently is being used for storage, and there is not currently a need for that space. So it would require about, when our maintenance director and I last spoke, and this is off the cuff, so I could be very wrong on this, but it would require about $1 million to bring it up to code. So there are several kind of pieces in there along roof, tiles, like that type of thing that aren't quite up to current codes. And so it's 7 classrooms would be available there if we wanted to redo it. And that would be part of our consideration, Jim, when we go through our next kind of housing aid kind of planning piece to try to consider what do we do with facilities long term, right? And so that's really part of that conversation around, let's look at the facilities that we have. If we wanted to do something, what would it take to upgrade that piece, right? And to put it back into use.
So when I was on the council in 2000, the last time I was on the council in 2008, is it possible it was empty then?
Yes,
Okay, so that's been a long time.
it's been a long time.
Yeah. So over those years, has anybody thought of anything like out of the box to use that for, or not fix it up and not use it at all, or tear it down, or?
All
I
great
don't know.
questions, right? So
Yeah.
we've thought about it for CTE, right? And whether we do, if we have a CTE that requires a little bit more space. So for example, we have a strong partnership with Local 51, the Plumbers Union, as well as Electric Boat, right? So if we needed a little more space for welding and that type of thing, we could use it there, but it's not always conducive. For example, we don't want to put welding fumes around where little kids are.
Well, that's probably the
Right?
biggest
So that
problem,
becomes part of
right?
the issue.
Yeah.
We thought about it for an alternative school. We haven't needed the space for that. And so we know that space is there should we have a reconfiguration of what we do with our schools. We haven't needed to upgrade that yet. Steve Gormiller, our maintenance director, does a great job making sure that it doesn't fall apart, right? So we make sure the roof is good, there's no leaks. We use it for storage, those types of things. And it's a accessory space. So for example, during COVID, it was a blessing to have that, right? Because we could put all of our masks, all of our PPE, all of our things. We had a central storage area where we could get things from in that area. So that was a great staging area for us. But long-term, it is something that could be developed should the town wish to develop it into
So
something.
is it heated? Like in the wintertime, is it still heated or is it drained?
It's cool, but not freezing.
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, so I remember that, and I think we put a roof on that then, too, because that
Yes.
was a gamble, and we
Correct, because you
decided-
didn't want it to fall apart.
Right. Okay, so, yeah, yeah, so that's kind of, kind of bothers me a little bit, that's just not being used, storage is not,
Totally agree,
Yeah.
right? And so if we, for example, if we had a reconfiguration of grade levels, right, that would be something that we would look at, right?
Yeah, so like, have you explored, and I know that these are issues that are probably difficult to have done, but the writing's on the wall, what's gonna happen here, you know what I mean? It's gonna happen everywhere, towns like ours, it's not just because of college students or prices or, it's because the people are making children, you know what I mean? Like, it's really about that, I think.
Sure. Overall, the population in Rhode Island has, school-aged children has gone down around 10%. So while our drop is a little bit more than the overall Rhode Island, it is a general trend in the state.
Yeah, so do you have, like, I know, like Becky mentioned, you're a long-range thinker, like, so 5 years from now, I mean, I would say it's possible because 2008 was 16 years ago, right? So in 16 years, the population has even gone down more in the school system. So there's probably areas besides the O'Brien wing that are underutilized in that building, right?
Absolutely.
And then, so do you ever see, or is there a state law where, because I remember, I believe when I was a kid, the elementary school and the middle school were the same, right?
Yes. So before Pier was opened, I believe in the early 90s.
I went to Monsignor Clark, so it was like,
And so,
it's a religious thing, I guess, but.
so these are all like excellent questions. And I think part of the process of our next round of housing aid is starting to engage in a community conversation around what does the community want to do long-term with facilities? What does the community want the configuration of our schools to look like? Right? And those are all hard and long-term conversations that I think, as you indicate, we're coming to a point where we need to have those conversations.
Are there state laws that prohibit you from having, elementary school and middle school in one building, or is it?
There are not. There are lots of different configurations that are possible. And really what you're looking at is what is developmentally appropriate for students, right? And so, there are K-6 models. We have a 5-8 model. There are K-8 models. There are 7-12 models, right? And so it's really around, one, what is the feedback from our parents and our community around what they want for their children, right? And what we want to look at.
Oh, it's important.
Two, what is programmatically the best thing for students, right? And so what we really want to look at is we don't want to put students in a place that's not developmentally appropriate for them, right? And so we want to be careful around our configurations in that way. And that both goes to having students who might be a little young being with students that are a little too old for them.
Right.
And also students who are too old, right, for a younger setting. And so we want to try to hit that sweet spot as we go forward. There's fortunately some research, not lots, but there's some research that helps us make those decisions. But as you indicate, there are some decisions to make going forward. What we also find is that things like our CTE programs take up more space, right? And so when you have, we have a really robust computer science program, right? They're bursting at the seams. They actually need more space. And so we also need to make some decisions around how are we best accommodating the programs that we have so that students are able to make the most of those opportunities.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting when we took a tour of the schools. You go there, like at that point in time, my kids were playing basketball at Bradford Trout and all that stuff. So you don't really pay attention, but, maybe, you offer us a time where we can come and, we see exactly what people are talking about, because
We'd love to have you.
yeah, and then the one other thing that always, the buses, so I know it's nice to have the buses, and I think it's better for us to have our own bus drivers than, I'm not thinking that way, but, it's, I consistently look at the buses when I'm driving by them, and I look at the RIPTA buses too, and I look at, generally in buses, and they're always empty. It's like.
Well, so what I will say to that is, so a couple of things. So one, when you look at the data, we actually, our transportation is more cost effective than outsourcing it.
Yeah, I would believe that, yeah.
There are many districts that are being put into financial distress because, one, the bus contracts have continued to go up and up and up, and two, the cost of transporting students out of district is exorbitant, right? So for, small example, a neighboring district, it costs them $1,000 a day for a student that has to go to outplacement in Providence, right? And so we don't have those costs. We've been really thoughtful about that. In terms of buses being empty, right? So we do have a pretty hard and fast guideline that we try to make sure that students aren't on the bus for more than an hour, right? And so could we have fewer buses? We could, but students would then be riding for that much longer, right? And so it's really finding that sweet spot. Right now, we have 2 bus runs for home to school pickup and drop off. So we have combined our high school and middle school run. So they are on the same buses. So, and then there's the elementary run.
When did you do that?
About 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. So the middle school and the high school share the bus, so there's not 3 different runs every day?
Just 2.
Yeah, oh, that's interesting.
Yes, and so, and then we don't have to pay out, for example, for extra for sports runs or
Sure.
for those
Yeah.
types of things. So
Yeah.
it's pretty effective. If you have met any juniors and seniors that actually want to ride the bus, you let me know who they are.
No, they're all on South Fair Road in the morning.
Right,
I
exactly.
can't believe there's so many cars. It's
Yes,
like unbelievable.
exactly right. And so that's part of what happens as well. And I will say, there is more of a trend. We do have to offer transportation. We do see more parents driving their kids to school for whatever reason, particularly post-COVID.
Are you planning on buying new buses soon?
We're pretty good for right now, so we just went through a round of that. We will have to buy one more mini bus that is specially equipped for wheelchairs pretty soon.
Okay.
But we are pretty up to date. I imagine that cycle will be coming up again in another year or 2, where we'll have to start thinking about that. We actually moved away. I think last time you were on the council, we were in the process. We leased our buses. We have found that long-term, it's more economical for us to purchase them outright. And so we have a great relationship with the town. They do wonderful maintenance for us on the buses. And it really has worked out as a benefit for both of us. So we've been able to keep our buses safe and extend their life.
And just one question, it's totally irrelevant to are the buses that we have Are any of them air conditioned?
No.
No. So they don't air condition buses because they use them in the winter, right? Is
Right.
that the reason?
I mean, they're heated. We don't let the kids freeze to death, but, you know, we
But
don't,
they're
but
not,
they're not air
they're
conditioned.
not, none of them, right? Even the smaller ones, they're not.
The vans are.
Yeah.
Right, because they're 8-person passenger vans,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I would have to check on the minibuses. I don't know the answer to that. But the big buses, we open the windows.
But the yellow ones?
Yeah.
They're not air conditioned?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, thank you for everything you do.
Thanks, great question.
Jason?
First of all, I'm super excited to work with you guys. I was just at the middle school chorus and band concert, which was quite lovely. And it makes me think if you're considering cutting positions, you're not considering cutting departments, correct? No arts, no
not at this
music.
time.
No, okay, good. Good. Just quickly, to the CTE programming, I know that we have great CTE programming. I know we have an agriculture program. I would love to see an aquaculture program.
Yes.
With the blue economy coming straight for us, we're the perfect place for it. So just my little thought.
Yes, that's great. We appreciate that suggestion. And, you know, our teachers are on with that as well. And so they're really looking at that development if it's something we can do.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Just wanted to return to the statewide ruling ordinance
Yep.
that you had mentioned earlier. You said it's based upon the commissioner,
Yes.
so they're an ETA on their term?
So the current commissioner, her contract was just renewed by Governor McKee for another 3 years. And so, again, the commissioner doesn't solely decide on those things, but certainly sets a legislative direction for the Department of Education. And so we are fortunate to have great local members of the legislature who do work with the school systems very closely. And so I am able to kind of communicate with them if there are bills coming up that we are either, that the committee is, you know, in favor of, or that might have a negative impact on Narragansett. So we do communicate with them regularly. So I am sure that they would be advocating for us should an opportunity arise for us to be able to take in kids, you know, at other levels.
Understood. Thank you.
All right. Just a few questions before closing it up. Just again, really appreciate just how thorough everything was presented to us as always, and I know we'll all be getting copies of the budget as you're working through everything. Donna and I are the representatives to the school committee and to the Capital Reserve, School Capital Reserve, so very much looking forward to working with you as well. So please feel free to share any information as it becomes available. One quick question. I've heard this, and I kind of know this by now, but just would you mind elaborating to the council just one more time and to those who may or may not be watching at home, along the lines of the tax burden when it comes to incoming and outgoing students, what exactly is the cost burden to the residents in town on students who are incoming versus
So,
outgoing?
Truly none, right? So what we do is that we structure our programs so that students who are incoming are joining Narragansett students in programs that we would be offering anyway, right? And so we don't solely run a CTE program just for out-of-district kids. We start it with our own students who have an interest in the program, and then they are supplemented by out-of-district students. You know, the tuition that comes in from out-of-district certainly helps us provide, you know, the teachers that we would maybe at times not otherwise be able to provide, right? And give more choice of classes and perhaps more teachers. So for example, we have an outstanding computer science program, right? And so students get certified in all sorts of things, from cybersecurity to robotics to networking to all sorts of things. So that is a program where we've had a lot of our own students who are in it, and they've come, and I would love to have them come to a town council meeting, quite honestly, and show you their robots. It's really amazing. And they are award-winning. In the state competition, Narragansett won the top award in computer science. But we're able to hire a second teacher because of the tuitions that we get in from out-of-district students. That both benefits the students who are coming to us and our own students, because again, that second teacher is amazing, right? And so we can offer more electives, we can offer more programs, and so it's a win-win, right? So would we still offer computer science if we didn't have out-of-district students coming in? Absolutely, right? Will we be able to offer it at the same level? Probably not, right? And so that's really where we are able to take that money to reinvest it in the school to the benefit of Narragansett residents.
Excellent, thank you. And then just two other quick questions, because I know we're already way over the traditional average time for this first kickoff.
I appreciate the question.
And I appreciate everyone's active listening and engagement. Along the lines of the aquaculture question, I know it's been asked by previous councils about the idea of collaborating with the University of Rhode Island and our Bay campus. Are we doing anything currently? I think we are, or at least it was in the works. I'm just trying to remember what to say to the public.
Yes, so our students, we have lots of students that earn credits through URI. They earn them through our computer science program, through our agri-science program, and through our education program. We're going to continue to work with them. We would like to partner with them in our new sports and medical training program. So we're going to work with them to see if we can partner with some of their kinesiology work and get some students some college credits with that. And I actually have a meeting with URI right after the holiday break to talk a little bit more around accessing the Bay campus. There's not always classes that are accessible to high school students at the Bay campus, just from the way that URI offers their courses. But we do take a lot of advantage of the Kingston campus, and we are going to talk with them about accessing the Bay campus should any opportunities become available.
Awesome, thank you. And maybe you've given us some ideas to follow up with the university on as well. Is the sports medical CTE program starting in fall of, like right now?
Yes,
Or next fall?
Fall of 25.
And next year, okay, thank you. And then last question, and you don't even need to answer this now, but for you, Dr. Cummings, and school committee members, just open-ended question, any big budget dreams, any big wishes for the schools that you'd like to see over the next year, 2 years, any really exciting ideas or possibilities of changes that you'd like to see in the coming years? And that's for anyone to answer.
Well, I would say our first school committee meeting is Wednesday. So we haven't even had our first meeting. We just got sworn in tonight. So our first meeting is Wednesday. I appreciate the vision. It's just, I'm going to kind of circle back to, this is very, very high level, like we haven't even met yet. But, our work ahead, we will meet, our building committee will meet, we'll meet with you for the capital reserve. Dr. Cummings will present to the school committee in February, kind of the first iteration of the full budget. We'll have 2 to 3 budget workshops. We'll meet again in March and vote on the budget. And our next meeting with you all will not be until April. So I would say, between now and April is a really long time. As you, as a new council, identify your budget goals and your budget priorities, we're doing the same thing on the school side. Please, please, please reach out anytime, through the town manager, directly to Pete. We're happy to answer any questions, but Pete is happy. Like, April's a long time away. So if you want to tour the school, if the body wants to meet, whatever, with building committee, capital reserve, instead of meeting here, meeting at a school, I'm sure we can figure that out. Even, just April's a long time. And then, April, we'll have the formal budget hearing where Dr. Cummings will present to you, and then, there'll be a lot of detailed information and questions, and then we'll meet again, as a workshop. But, so I think that we'll be able to answer that question better for sure in April, because then by April, we'll have heard the iteration of the budget, we'll have had our budget workshops, the Capital Reserve Committee will have met, Building Committee will have met. But I appreciate the question. I would say in the past, several years, it would have been very easy for me to say, we need to get the auditorium renovated at the high school. We need to get, and again, it's been a long iteration of the greenhouse and the athletic complex and the resurfacing the gym floor at the high school. And in the past few years, it's been a lot of not the very fun and exciting stuff, but we need a new HVAC, we need a new boiler, we need the parking lots resurfaced, a lot of health and safety, a lot of security upgrades. We invested a lot of money in. I'm really glad that we did, because as you know, another school shooting today in Wisconsin, very heartbreaking. So I appreciate the question. I'm really looking forward to working everyone. Please reach out because we won't get together again until April. And I'm really excited, and I appreciate the questions. Good questions. So tough questions, Jim. But I think that's great because, of course, we're looking at in this 2-year term, what can we do, to better the schools, do what's right for the residents. But you have to think past the next 2 years. You have to look at where are we going to be in 5 years, 10 years, and it may not be these elected officials that are making those decisions, but you have to do that long-term planning. So it's good questions.
And I realized it was the way, way, way too early question about forward thinking, but it gets everyone's minds going. Get set. So again, unless anyone else has anything else that they'd like to say, I just want to reiterate congratulations to all of you on your election, and we are very much looking forward to working with you. I highly encourage the town council to engage with the school committee members, meet up for a coffee, get to know them. They're really wonderful people. They don't bite, maybe I do, but no, it's all good. And our next, I think Tammy actually outlined the budget cycle for the schools very well. The town council has been presented with the important dates for the upcoming months for the budget cycle. So just make sure that we're keeping that in mind and on our calendars as well. And with that, I have nothing else to add. So meeting is adjourned, and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.